Hey, welcome back. So last time we continued on my testimony about what I went through primarily in 2022. So that even means I mentioned how I was in cosmetology school, still trying to get my business to grow, me and my mom not talking. Even along with how I was working at Supercuts for a little bit, and that eventually the week of my birthday with my car breaking down, having to go to the shop and and being told that I had 6 months to move out. So coming into 2023, I'm still in search for an apartment, but this time I'm finally working at Supercuts full time, and not just as a receptionist. I am a stylist in training. So until I went and did my cosmetology exams, I was able to work, but under the supervision of my manager. So my search for an apartment was still ongoing. It was from December of 2022 going into 2023. I did a month fast, and I did an abbreviation, a different type of fast, only because at the time I was I was on my feet constantly all day, and I was still healing from the injury that I had. So I was able to get up and keep moving, but I had to be uh, physically active so that I could keep going. And so I did need food simultaneously. And I ended up creating my own version of a liquid fast so that I could get nourishment into me and not fully be eating. So it was like a variation of a fast. But when I did that, it was to make my life a little easier, health conscious wise. But then I was like, you know what? I might as well fast since I'm going to be doing this type of restriction. And after I did this fast going into 2023, God was actually providing me with what I needed to move into my apartment. So um, I ended up getting a hair extension client outside of Supercuts. Not only was I did I have my hourly wage plus the tips that I was making at Supercuts, I had other services that were popping up outside of Supercuts, and I was able to go and do those clients' hair, which actually helped boost up what I needed to move into my apartment. So March comes, I move into my apartment. I find the apartment that God had chosen, and for me, this was like a cute little apartment. It was a nice, cute apartment for me. It was something that was my style. I kind of liked how odd shaped it was. And leading up to me moving, I was originally planning to not tell my mom and just be moved out by the time she came home. So I actually had that planned out in my head. The thing was, I ended up telling her because I still wanted her to be a part of my life. And so the day I moved, I told her I had my family was helping me move. My best friend came down from Jersey to help me move, and I also had a friend who lived in Maryland. Her and I went to cosmetology school together. She even came and helped me move. And not only did I get my family disapproved of my apartment, first of on how all the stairs were, but they didn't fully say what they were thinking. But they told both my friends two different things. Where my mom went to my friend from cosmetology school saying that she was proud of me that I went and did this. But then simultaneously, her and my sister went to my best friend and was criticizing my apartment and asking her, why did I get this apartment? So I got two different variations of what's going on. So there was just a lot of contempt for when I was moving, which kind of proved my original thought was to not tell her about where I was moving. So I live out in my new apartment. I didn't have the money for furniture because of the short time frame that I had based off of when I was able to work full time. I had to I I just had to keep working, so I didn't have the extra money to make this my new home a home. So I had a lot of my stuff still in boxes. When I moved on Saturday, I had the stuff that I needed to do on Sunday, but then Monday I'm right back at work, so I really didn't get even a rest period. But going further in March, I moved into my apartment in the beginning of March. Tensions rise not between me and my manager, but between me and my, she was either a district or a regional manager. And it's because there were just some things she just would cross boundaries on. I'm someone who, like, don't move my stuff because I need to be able to find the things that I have. She was constantly changing my schedule, moving it around without my permission or without me knowing. So I've had to go and address her on that. And she just was a constant control figure and kept trying to control my life, even though there were limits I did have to have. And she just made it difficult to work, that every time I went to work and I knew she was coming or showing up, I I did not want to be there with her, which came to a point where I was recommended a salon by another friend who I was in cosmetology school with, because she found it. And this salon was originally a barbershop, but they were making a unisex salon, and they were looking for more stylists. Now, luckily for me, I could do both women's and men's hair. And so I went to the salon and I was actually kind of excited. I wanted to branch out more in cosmetology. I didn't want to be just stuck doing simple haircuts at Supercuts. And when it came to like the bigger services at Supercuts, they barely came in because there were people who were also money conscious of what they can and cannot do. So when I got to this salon, I was actually excited and I wanted to try it out. I did speak with my manager, my store manager, like, would it be okay if I worked there and here? And I worked out the schedule for me to do it. Now, of course, she didn't have a problem with it. She was actually very encouraged that I try and make it in cosmetology, but she still had to go and ask. Now, the interesting thing was, I did not want the regional manager to know my business because of how she acted and how she behaved. And so we ended up asking someone dealing with HR in the company. That person in HR immediately contacted that manager that I didn't want to talk to, and that it caused a conversation that happened between me, my store manager, and her, resulting in, because I told her I just want to expand. There are certain things I'm limited here, I'm not able to do. I still want to learn, but I'm willing to still be here and work. So I was able to do both. Because she didn't like that I was looking at other opportunities in the salon, she said that I wasn't all for Supercuts, wasn't completely devoted, dedicated in that kind of phrasing to Supercuts. So she drastically cut my hours from that day forward. And when she did that, I was like, fine, since you're gonna cut my hours, I know what I'm gonna do. Because eventually I made the decision to eventually leave. The decision to leave was when I got to test out the actual salon. And once I tested it out and I saw how things went, I was like, I prayed on it. I waited for God to give an answer, and I got the okay to leave. So when I quit, I gave in my key, because I had a key to the store. Because there would be times I may be there and I would open up, and that was when I was a receptionist. I would go. I went. I gave my resignation letter. I gave in my key. So I did everything I was supposed to do, because all that wasn't necessary. And it just made the situation complicated. There was a nicer way of dealing with it, but that's not how it turned out. So I ended up in this month of March, I ended up moving into my apartment and transitioning salons that same day. I mean, that same month. It was also, it's like going into April. I'm in my apartment. I'm having a day to myself, so I'm actually in my apartment just chilling. And I remember having the urge to masturbate, and I didn't want to. I was slowly learning that masturbation was wrong, even though I didn't know the reason why. I ended up learning, like slowly learning that it is wrong. And I remember the battle that I had that day, and I and I accomplished it and resisted. And because I resisted, and I was like, I'm going to like not do it anymore, keep going forward. It opened me up for the test that God was going to bring into my life, because the test that came up, this was also around the time I was also working on building my relationship with the Lord. So I was going back to waking up early in the morning as well and spending time with the Lord. So the test that He brings my way, and it actually happened that day when I resisted the temptation, that rodents started popping up in my apartment. And I was so freaked out because, and that night I remember I had to go find a Rite Aid that was open 24 hours. So I went and found a Rite Aid, went and got mouse traps, got stuff to try and kill the rodents. And it wasn't just one. It was like multiple, like they all came out of nowhere. And I had to learn how to deal with all that. So it was like for a couple days. I There was one night I came home from work, so this is probably like a Monday night. And as I'm sitting there doing my daily accounting for being in salon, because I had been in this new salon for a little bit, and I account what came in and tally it all up. I ended up seeing that there was a rodent playing peekaboo with me through a heating vent. It was after, while I was playing peekaboo with me, it brought his head up and leaned forward, watching me. Like, what are you gonna do? I was like, oh no, I'm going. I gotta call my mom. I'm not doing this. So I called my mom and I told her the situation, and I asked her if I could stay with her for a little bit, which she allowed me to come, and I ended up staying with her for like 3 weeks. So me and her are in this, it wasn't really long that I had moved out when I ran into this issue. And because I ended up staying with her for a little bit, I'm trying to figure out how the heck am I going to deal with this. And my mom is talking to me about my job and getting another apartment because of the rodent situation at my place. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if that's something I should do. And even when it came to talking about my employment, I told her I left Supercuts. There were issues there. Of course, my mom had no idea about all the issues that I faced at Supercuts, even when I was living with her. So, like, my mom had no idea, even when someone stole from me. She wasn't even a part of it. And when we were talking about it, I told her I left. And I said when I went to a new salon, when I started out, I was making about the same that I was making in Supercuts, so I'm able to make it. I have there was no financial problems, and I was doing good. She didn't say anything about that, but she still just looked down on the fact that I was doing hair. That it came up, there was this question, do I stay at my apartment or do I move? And this was something I was going through for like the entire time I was staying with my mom. This was like a back and forth thing. my mom was saying that I should move, and she was willing to let me stay with her for a little bit until I found a new place. But by having to find a new place, I was going to have to actually go and get a job. And I remember God telling me to stay, like stay where I am. And I was like, okay. The problem that came up was I was talking about my situation with another friend. This is, of course, I had three friends that came out of cosmetology with that I was still talking to once I graduated. And the other one, we were talking about it, and she put in her opinion, of course, which is what everyone does, but saying how if it was her, she wouldn't feel comfortable knowing that there were rodents around and living like that. And it made me think about that too. So when it came to my decision, I ended up saying that I'll move because of the reality of living there. And when it came to, now this is how you know God didn't want me to leave that apartment. When it came to, because I was talking with my mom, and we agreed we'll go, she'll, her, my sister, my brother will come help me move out. The day when it was for me to move, because we even had to work it out with the leasing office, and they knew because of the rodent situation, they weren't going to penalize me for leaving. Uh, when it came to moving, that day was just a horrible day to move. Not only was it raining, it was a little chilly. I've had an injury. My mom has had injuries, so I know I felt pain in my body. My mom felt pain in her body, and we weren't able to move. So I ended up having to stay in my apartment. The thing was, I felt like I failed in the test that I was given. And I remember I felt like upset because the thing was, the reality is, God told me what to do. And when I sought Him for an answer, He gave me an answer. And I didn't obey it. So I ended up walking out in disobedience. And that kind of stuck in my spirit. And I was really upset about it. Then it came to a moment where God was still continuing to test me and still developing my character. So I'm still waking up early in the morning, spending time with Him, and growing. And it gets to a point now, it's not just something dealing with my housing situation, because eventually there were people who came, dealt with the rodents. I know I've killed quite a few. And they went, sealed up the holes of which the rodents were getting through. So I didn't have many instances of seeing rodents coming in and out. But when I went to work, I ended up going through a dry spell. There was 1 week I ended up not getting any clients. If it wasn't people just not showing up, not wanting me to do their hair, I may have had clients scheduled up and then they would turn around and cancel or just be a no-show. So I ended up going through a month of like no money coming in. And not only did I end up being behind on booth rent, which I tried, and there were some areas where I was able to keep up with the booth rent, but when it came to my actual rent, I ended up going into June not being able to pay rent. But in May, when I did pay rent, I only had half of the money, and my bank account ended up going into the negative. So I was like negative $400 or $500 in my bank account. I had to call my bank, let them know what happened, so they were willing to work with me. It was around that time, like May, June, I went out applying for a job to work at Marshall's. So I ended up getting a second job, not being because I also wasn't able to pay my rent, and because I was when the money from Marshall's was coming in, it helped me with my negative account, but I wasn't able to use it for towards my rent. So the month of June, I ended up being behind on rent. I spoke with my leasing office. They understood. They were going to work it out with me, which I was grateful for. But then I ended up going into July, also not having money because my business was struggling by that point. I wasn't having money coming in, and it just things were really really hard. Even when money did come in, I tried to pay what I needed to pay. There would be times where even if I paid some bills, I didn't have money for gas. I didn't have money for groceries. I had to. It was like day to day. What came in ended up going right back out. So I ended up going into a horrible mismanagement of money, but that was only because I was trying to pay what needed to be paid at the time at which I could pay it, and I wasn't even able to save to the point like no money was coming in. So for a span of like 2.5 months, I'm financially struggling, trying to make it, trying to just do right in this business. And it just, while I'm already got this pressure going on, also during this time, tensions also rise between me and the salon owner. And she's also watching how I'm struggling, like I'm trying to get clients to come in. But then she's also trying to say that I shouldn't be charging the customers so much. Take what you can so you can make it. And it's like, no, this is still a business. I need to be able to charge because when I charge that price, that's gonna cover other expenses that I have to go pay. I have to still get my own barbicide. I still have to get my own products. I was making products also, and that's not cheap to make when you make your own products. I had to pay for the maintenance and of things that I needed to get done. So it was that constant back and forth of her mad at me for not lowering my prices, which for a man's haircut was $40. There would be multiple times she would even have someone come in. They're looking for a stylist. She would refer them to me. I told them the price. They would not choose me. They go back to her and then refer them to another stylist. That stylist, which was also my friend, would charge less. And then that person went to that person. That customer went to my friend. Once that customer left, my friend would feel upset, like she felt like she should have charged more. I'm like, yeah, you should have. What did you charge me? And it was definitely less than what I had would have charged. So there was this constant back and forth. If it didn't work out to like pricing range, that salon owner did help another stylist get money coming in. But the thing was, my friend wasn't always able to be there. She had a lot of stuff going on. In particularly, she was pregnant with twins, and so she just had so much going on. So she wasn't always able to come to the salon. So I ended up being like skipped over, missed out a lot because of pricing. But the reality was, if I knew that if I lessened the price, that wasn't going to help my situation because where I needed money to go into other aspects of my business wouldn't have been fulfilled. Not only did I learn that in business school, I learned that also in cosmetology. So there is this rising tension between me and her. I'm trying to get my business to grow. I'm low. I'm missing rent for 2 months, and I started looking for another salon to work at because not it wasn't primarily of the owner. She's just a contributing factor to it. It was the fact that I wasn't even making money, and it was hard to make money there, especially when people did come. They always try to negotiate to get a lesser price, and the reality is no, that's not happening here. We're not negotiating down the price. The price is the price. We're going to keep it there. So I ended up learning another aspect of when you're in cosmetology about the clientele of what you're trying to get. Be careful of where you're trying to build for yourself. So I ended up finding another salon. Not only did I end up finding another salon, and I ended up working there in the beginning of August. So I'm guessing like the week of August 1st. I also had to move out by August 1st because I was behind on rent for 2 months. When it came to moving out, I had to find a place to stay and I had no money. Of course, I called my mom and talked to her about it, and she told me that I wasn't allowed to come back home. I wasn't staying with her. She recommended that I contacted my grandfather and ask him, which during this time while I'm also at the salon, I also end up seeing my grandfather a little bit more. I cut his hair like twice, I think, like one or two times. So he left his barber and started coming to me. And he said that I was invited any time to come over. So when I asked my grandfather if I could stay with him, he went and spoke with my grandmother, so they had to have a conversation. But then I was told that I couldn't stay with them. And my grandfather's response was that it wouldn't be a right fit. It's like that they don't know me, which was upsetting and hurtful for me. I understood what he meant, that because of we're two separate people, they haven't really been my life. It would be crazy for me to be in their world, in their home. But it was very hurtful that he sat there and told me that they didn't know me. Even though I had come out and seen them when I was older, so that was by my choice. And even though I approached him to say hi to him, so I already made the efforts going forward, and I get told that they don't know me, which was very hard. I remember calling my mom back saying like they said no, and my mom was upset that I asked my grandfather instead of my grandmother, and she even made the statement like, you know that it's Agnes that runs that house. But I replied back, but that's not God's intention. I asked Papa because he's the head of the household. God put man as the head. I did things God's way, not their way. But my mom wanted me to apologize for my grandmother for not asking her. And I'm like, okay, so I do this, and my grandmother is someone that I usually don't like being around anyway because of who she is. But she was very antagonistic, high and mighty, and saying, I don't know what's wrong between you and your mother, but you need to go to her, not me. So in one day, I got shut off from two sides of my family. And I'm sitting here looking at, I got a couple days, I have to move out, and I have nowhere to stay. I'm looking at options of like shelters of where I can go. Simultaneously, I'm also telling my best friend about all of this. And I don't remember who brought it up, but the idea of me staying with her, because she had also moved in the month of March and she had her own place. And I was like, what do I do? At first, I didn't want to move in with her because I knew that it would be a lot harder for her. There was a possibility of our friendship actually being tested because like we never lived together. This would be like the first time, so we would actually be roommates. And I just was more worried about if this would actually ruin our friendship. But I had this very strong piece of saying yes, go there. And what kept coming to my mind when it came to that decision was Abraham. How God told Abraham to go to a land that he will show him. So Abraham went out to a land that God was going to show him. And that's what the story that kept resonating with me was that God was taking me somewhere. So I agreed I was going to stay with her. I told her I don't know how long this is going to be. I'll try to not be here that long. That eventually, when it came to moving, I had a couple days and I had to move. So I had to pack up my car. I had to go find a storage unit for my stuff. But my car was filled up because it wasn't just some things I need, like clothes to have, but I also had my salon work equipment with me that I was traveling. And so that week was just a very hard week for me because I got like two sides of my family just cut off as a possibility. There was a thought to even ask my grandmother on my mom's side or my aunt, but then I was like, they got too many issues going on right now as it is. And when I say issues, there was issues between my grandmother and my aunt with my mom. So there's already too much of a battle there, and I don't want to get in the mix up of it. And I'm also not trying to give them any ammunition towards my mom either. So I didn't even bother asking them for help. When I moved, I was heartbroken that not only my business wasn't doing well, but that I lost my first apartment. And my best friend, she was very kind and was helpful not to make matters worse because she knew I was already upset. And so I'm grateful that my best friend was there the entire time, was willing to extend out a hand to me and help me out. So when I moved, like the week after I had to move, everyone knew I had to move by like the first week of August. No one wanted to help me. It was after that Sunday. It's like Monday morning or Monday. I'm waking up to text like, "Are you okay? How are you doing?" Like, don't ask me how I'm doing. I got a text from my mom. I got a text from my sister. I think I got a text from my grandfather, and then eventually a text from my uncle. And it's like that day I decided I'm done. No, you guys all my life would sit there and say blood is thicker than water. What blood is family's supposed to be there, but the moment when I need you, you're not there. Whenever you guys needed me, I showed up. I was there by your side and I helped you through it. But the moment it's my turn, no one wants to show up. So I cut off my family from that day and I was done talking with my family. And I had no intention of talking to them ever again because I was done with my family. I was also the week when going into the first week of staying with my best friend, I was also starting at the new salon. And I told the owner some of the things that I had dealt with, and she frankly was on my side and would not have hindered me in any way of how handling business. As long as I do what I'm supposed to do, I will be fine. And it gave me a sense of peace in that regard. Then, as I'm starting out, I'm doing all right. I'm starting out, so I have to build my clientele, and everything is looking fine and going good. And then eventually, I hit a moment where no money's coming in again. And I'm going through the same process of struggling. I run into situations where I'm not able to pay bills. So there was a good moment in time I wasn't even able to pay my phone bill. There was a moment in time where I was behind on my storage unit payments. Because I was traveling from Jersey to Delaware like 5 days out of the week, I had a hard time even just putting gas in my car. And my car even went through some more heavy hardships because of the long distances, but also because I wasn't having the money coming in. I also wasn't having my regular routine maintenance checks and oil changes. I was doing things that I could do on my own at the time instead of being able to go to an actual mechanic. So I had money drying up again, and this is going on from like August up until some point in December, and I'm going back and forth, struggling, and I remember feeling this heavyweight pressure and stress of trying to, one, make sure I earn a living so that I'm being taken care of, go and making sure I'm contributing to my best friend in some way because I have no money coming in, like at all. And because I acknowledge like expenses go up when you take on an extra person into your home, and I felt really guilty about doing this to her. And this was like going on for a while. There was like one week where I hit the max of what I was making or what I was doing, and things were going like great. And it's like yes, it's like I arrived it, but then immediately right after that, that's when the drought came in. That happened also back at the previous salon. There was like one week I was doing great. I had services that came in and left, like services that were coming in. I was rescheduling with the people to come back, so I had a really good week. There was one really good week that happened over at the unisex salon, and then it happened here at the salon that I was at, and then it was like immediately right after it just went to a complete drought, and it continued until I left. I was so stressed because of how I was financially struggling that a lump was actually developing in my face. And I had to learn how to let go and just face the consequences head on. The hardship of just not being able to keep up with booth rent, not being able to pay or financially contribute with my best friend, or just even just take care of myself. So I had to learn how to calm down for that lump to finally start going away. Eventually, we hit Thanksgiving, which was ended up being my first Thanksgiving by myself. My best friend actually wanted me to come and celebrate Thanksgiving with her mom, and the rest of her family, but her mom didn't want me there. And so I ended up spending Thanksgiving with by myself for the first time. So I ended up watching like some real cool movies. I did not actually intend to have like an African American movie night because I remember that night I watched there was like a cowboy set movie. Regina King is in it, and who else was in it? I think Idris Elba. I might be wrong, but it was that movie. And then the second movie I watched was They Clone Tyrone, which was a very cool black sci-fi movie. And then the other one I watched was the second Miles Morales movie. And so I ended up having, like, it's relatively cool. I had Chinese food, which I've never had Chinese food for Thanksgiving food before. And because in my best friend's place, she didn't have a real kitchen, it's not like I could actually cook something. But I remember I was upset because I was spending Thanksgiving by myself. But I remember I prayed and like, Lord, it's gonna be you and me together Thanksgiving. Even though it was upsetting, I had a relatively restful Thanksgiving weekend. That I think on that Black Friday, I went back to work and just continued working. And I even did the same thing on Saturday. Going into the weekend, God had been working on my heart and still trying to get me to heal. It was when I came back, because the salon is closed on Sunday and Monday. I came back to work the following Tuesday, and I'm sitting there, no clients. Like I'm trying to get clients, and I have no clients. Leading up to this point, I didn't even have a way to make to get more clients because money wasn't coming in. I wasn't able to get business cards. I wasn't able to go out and hand out flyers like I did before. So become I became very dependent on social media and trying to make content so that people would be attracted to what I was doing and come in. Then it's like Tuesday. I'm there in the morning. It's about lunchtime, so I go out and I'm having lunch, and I'm watching something, and I think it was something with Priscilla Shire in it, but the topic was dealing with forgiveness. And it was that day, it was like something that had been coming up back and forth for a while, but I finally, it's like it came front and center. And I was angry at my mom again. I had already forgiven my mom, but I needed to re-forgive her. There were areas not only did she re-traumatize me on, and I was upset at how she re-traumatized me. I was upset and angry at how she treated me. Like, I'm your daughter. How can you treat your daughter like this? I started following Christ, and then all of a sudden she becomes my public enemy number one. Not only that, the thing that I'm mad at her the most is because by this point I know fully that masturbation was wrong. And it's like, why would you lead me into something like this? Why would you allow or teach me something that is against God's way? You're supposed to cover me and protect me. My mom, before I left her house, she was my spiritual leader. And there were things that she would be careful about doing or teaching in front, around me, or before me, because she did not want me to be exposed to the sexual realm and then end up being pulled in some way. But when it came to my faith walk in Christ, there are different subtle attacks towards my purity. It wasn't, my mom didn't know that I made a vow to wait for marriage at 17. She had no idea about it. When she found out about it, I was a senior in college, so I had went through my high school years and my college years a virgin based off of a vow I made with the Lord. That was my heart posture. And because she didn't know about it, so she was always very quick to accuse me of trying to be sexually active, which wasn't the case. But now that she knew that not only am I a virgin, but also I chose to wait and I made a vow to wait. Now there are other attacks on my purity. My mom in the past would make comments about how none of her kids are dating and kind of be like, I'm trying to prepare you for marriage. She would hint towards like I wanted to go back into dancing, and she had no problem if I learned pole dancing. Now I do look at pole dancing and I like the artistry and the strength dealing with pole dancing. I've never done it because there is a lustful aspect to it and I didn't want to be a part of that. I just thought it would be cool to be swinging on the pole, but I never done it. My mom thought that would be okay because one day I was going to be married. It's like, okay, so I had that idea. When it came to when I was heavily aroused, my mom's comment of calling up someone to help me out, which I put in air quotes, that was highly inappropriate for my mom to do, especially knowing that I am a virgin and the goal is to make sure your daughter stays in her purity. Instead, my mom does the opposite. Not only does she give the okay, the permission to masturbate, there's also this recommendation of getting a toy, which furthers me into this sexual immorality. So I was angry at my mom for not protecting me the way that she was supposed to. And because I was mad, I was holding all of this against her. But as in mindful, I'm having this internal conversation in a mall, in front of the salon I'm working in the cafe area, and I'm sitting and I'm having this internal conversation battle within myself that eventually the question came up: Do I want to be free or do I want to be right? It was in that moment I was like, I want to be free. Don't get me wrong, I knew I was right, but that's not what I wanted more. I wanted to be free from it. So it was in that day, not only did I forgive my mom for what she's done towards me, and I forgave her for how she's parented me and even how she has re traumatized me. But it was also in that moment I had to take accountability of the fact that I was the one that masturbated and that I committed this sin. So I even so I took accountability of my actions as well. After I did all that hard work, I ended up leaving work early because I was just like so drained out, tired. So I left, went home. I ended up eating early, hanging with my best friend a little bit while she was at work. And then when I went home, I got ready for bed and then went to bed. The next day I got up and I was like, it's time to start looking for another job. I tried working at Amazon. That did not last a week. I was tired and I did a lot of driving. I tried, because by this point I had to quit Marshall's because when I moved up to Jersey, because it was hard for me to keep my job at Marshall's and be in Jersey. Then I tried to call Marshall's to see if I can come back, and they were actually working on it. I just had to go through something. I can't remember what it was. But then it was that week, there were some people in the house that we were living in. So the house that me and my best friend were living in, it had other parts. There was a main part, and then there was a part that was cut off from us. And they mentioned to her father, who owned the house, that we were living there. Well, that I was living there. When her father found out, that was when I he then he wanted me to start working at the diner. Now, hindsight, this is happening as we're approaching the month of December, right? When I first came up to Jersey back in August, God actually told me to ask my best friend's dad for a job at the diner. I knew it was 24 hours, and I was told to work there in August and work the overnight shift. I did not do it. So this is actually the second time I disobeyed God that year. I was like, I thought about it. At first, I was going to do it, but then I was like, no, I am worth so much more. I'm not going to work somewhere that's beneath my potential. No, I'm not going to do it. So I was very arrogant in my approach. Not only was I afraid to show that I needed money, but I also became very arrogant and prideful in then not doing it. Like I said before, where God wants you to be, you're going to end up being there. So going into December 1st, which was that weekend, the week of, I forgave my mom, that weekend, Friday night in particularly, when I came back home from work, I was kind of chilling out for a little bit before I went in, got ready for bed. And my best friend's coming in through the door like, hey, so you're working at the diner and you're starting tonight. And I'm like, what? What do you mean I'm starting tonight? I like, what? Like, and because of just everything that's happening, I'm like, okay. So I ended up having to get ready for the next day. So when I went to the diner that night, I was actually dressed for to go back to the salon the next day. So I ended up working Friday night, and into Saturday. And I had my first night at the diner, and the person that was supposed to train me ended up not training me. I got trained by someone else, and I just had a that was just like an interesting night. And my very first day working at this diner, I was just thrown out to the wolves. So I was thrown out on a busy Friday night, not knowing exactly much to do. So I couldn't even work on the register. I couldn't even work in the back of the kitchen to pack orders. I couldn't do anything. I could probably pass the cakes to help do that, but I really was mostly observing. Then after I left, I was able to take food with me, which was very nice. I went to my salon job, and I was really tired. So I instead of going home and taking a nap, I decided to go ahead, drive down, and just wait till the mall opened. Took a little nap in my car. Eventually, as I was going into the weekend, that was Saturday, so going into Sunday, question came up: should I take a break from doing hair? Should I take a break from business? And that's exactly what I ended up doing, and I prayed on it. And the same way how I had peace when I went up to live with my best friend in Jersey, I had that same peace here, and I actually had an excitement about taking a break. So after I made that decision on Sunday, I called up the salon owner and talked to her, and I told her, like, hey, I'm going to take a break from doing hair. I'm going to leave the salon. And don't get me wrong, there were some issues there, but on this end, it was more so of I made a promise to deliver and I didn't deliver during my time at the salon. So there's a bit of like a disappointment of me working there because I didn't what should have happened, the success that should have came didn't come. But she understood and was like, okay. So when I went into that week, that was my last week at the salon. I was completing out my last week, did everything I was supposed to do. I had to clear out all my stuff. When I left, I did not have much money. I only had a little bit. I was hoping to have a little extra so I can have it in my car for gas, but that didn't happen. So I made it up with what little I had with what I made, and I stopped doing hair for a while. There was some issue, and then going forward, there were some issues with scheduling at the diner. Eventually, that got worked out, and I was working at the diner like a little bit more full time. And because of the schedule I was working, I ended up working primarily with someone I became friends with during this time. Funniest thing, when I first met him that Friday night, this is like a Turkish owned diner. So when I met him, I heard his accent. I'm like, oh no, this boy might be racist. I am a black female who has this gift of leadership, and she's not afraid of people, up against this Turkish guy who I'm pretty sure is Muslim because my best friend, well, at the time, was Muslim. It's like, this is not going to go well. So there was for a while I was talking to him, but trying to figure him out to know, are you racist or not racist? But because during that time, not only did I eventually figure out he's not racist, he's cool. I'm also having this sense of like I have freedom. I'm free from the stress that I was going through. I'm taking a break. So I had an unexpected joy in my heart. So everyone in that diner got exposed to a joy that God had given me because I was free. I was free taking a break. I could literally just breathe. And even I did the job, did what I was supposed to do. I was still learning. Not only that, but because of how easy this job was, because this is something I did like when I was 16, it was like I came to work to play. I was on top of everything and I was able to still be me. That by the end of December, I would say the the development of friendship between me and my coworker started to grow. It got to a friend status, which I'm not gonna lie, it did. But it looked like it was transitioning quickly because it was December 31st of 2023, and the reason why I remember that date is because of course I can't leave the old year without something going on going into the new year. So, with that being said, my coworker gave me a rose as I'm going in because I'm working also New Year's Eve. I was asked to come in, so I ended up coming in. As I'm working on like going to work, and it's like in the beginning of the shift, my coworker, he hands me this red rose with a little white bear on it and says, "I love you." And I'm like, "Why'd you hand this to me?" He was I don't know. I saw it and I just wanted to hand it to you. Of course, like, don't get me wrong, he's quite attractive, but because of what I was going through, one, I wasn't intending to date anyone. I wasn't looking to be in a relationship after everything that I had went through. And when I first met him and trying to figure out who he is, one of the first questions I asked him was, "So, what do you like to do? Like, what are your hobbies?" Immediately, he said that he loves his girlfriend. And it was like, okay, I ain't asked you that, but good for you. You love your girlfriend. That was not my intention of trying to deal with anything else. So, from the beginning of December going into the end of December, there's something going on there. And that's where there is a transitioning of our co-worker relationship turning into friendship and then potentially turning into something more, which we will go further into next time for part 6 of my testimony, because going into 2024 it gets even crazier. I can't believe that some of the things that I went through during 2024, but everything I went through 2024 developed my character in the way that God needed it to be developed, and I got to grow in areas of which I needed to grow in, which I'm very grateful for. It hurt like hell, but I'm glad I went through it. So until next time, I look forward to speaking with you again. Bye.